Well, unfortunately, we've had to edit out some important information because big tech won't let us say that sort of thing. To listen to the full uncut show, go to dailywire.com/subscribe.
Until we teach our children that we have to jettison this silly, ignorant ideology, that I can only feel good about myself if I'm loved by white America, and I can only be protected or affirmed if I'm protected and affirmed by my government, we will never go any further. If we can ever get that sizable chunk, about 15% of the black vote, away from the Democratic Party, we'll take them down forever. And I believe that black men are not going to go back to Ms. Harris.
Vince Everett Ellison is a political commentator, author, and documentarian on the intersection of American politics, race, and religion. Born on a cotton plantation in Haywood County, Tennessee, Ellison admired how his parents lifted him and his 6 siblings out of poverty through hard work and their Christian faith. He graduated from Memphis State University and worked at a maximum security prison before entering the nonprofit arena as part of the National Center for Public Policy Research's Project 21 Black Leadership Network. In his popular book, The Iron Triangle, Ellison draws upon his life experiences to connect the dots between black preachers, civic organizers, and the Democratic politicians who benefit from promoting detrimental policies to black Americans. His latest book, The End of Tolerance, criticizes the left's elevation of tolerance as the ultimate American virtue. In today's episode, we discuss the Democrats' most depraved policies, Donald Trump's appeal to black voters, and Ellison's reaction to the Chicago DNC. We also explore why progressive politics thrive on arrogance and how humility can be found in religious faith. As we navigate one of the most contentious election seasons of our lifetime, you won't want to miss Vince Everett Ellison's analysis of Democratic Party politics. Welcome back to another episode of the Sunday Special. Vince, thanks so much for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
Man, it is my pleasure. I've been watching you for years, and I am a fan.
Hey, thank you so much. So why don't we start with, obviously, the hot topic. It's the 2024 election cycle. The Democrats offed their old candidate, Joe Biden. They have replaced him with their brand new, joyous, wondrous, incredible light-bringer candidate, Kamala Harris, running against Donald Trump. You know, what do you make of Kamala Harris, the candidate?
Kamala Harris has been an opportunist her whole life. You know, she was Willie Brown's side piece when she was in San Francisco, running around with Montel Williams, and she used him to get into San Francisco politics. And then after that, she played Indian to get the Indian vote. Then she made sure that she married a man that obviously had money to make sure that she could get the Jewish vote. And then after that, she played black to get the black vote. So Kamala Harris will do whatever she needs to do to get power. I always knew that once she became vice president, that Joe Biden needed to watch his back because she was going to stab him in it sooner or later. I mean, I watched her when she ran in the primary, and she didn't make it to Iowa, but she had a plan. So Kamala got Joe Biden to get 100 black men to write him a letter telling him that if he did not choose a black woman for his vice presidency, they was going to deep six his campaign. So she got P. Diddy, Akon, a bunch of thugs and rappers and greasy preachers to write him a letter. And Joe Biden capitulated. And then Kamala Harris went up to Joe Biden, and because Joe had dementia, he didn't know any better, told him that she was black. Joe bought it. And she slid into a slot designed for a black woman. So she played the game for a while. She walked around grinning and aggravating people and doing stupid stuff, and waited until America finally figured out that Joe Biden was crazy. And when we figured out he was crazy, they kicked him out and put her in. So it was masterfully done. Somebody behind there figured it out because she didn't have enough sense to do it. So we got to find out who Kamala's puppet master is and give him a lot of kudos. But it's going to catch up with her, Ben.
So let's talk about, kind of the elephant in the race that has to do with race when it comes to the Democratic Party, which is the Democratic Party really since 2012 has relied very heavily on heavy black turnout. That was the model that Barack Obama applied to politics in 2012. In 2008, he won a broad victory across pretty much every demographic in the United States. When it came to black voters in 2012, however, he needed heavy turnout in places like Ohio, in Michigan, in order to secure his reelect victory in 2012. And ever since then, there's been this super heavy reliance on the black vote by every politician, whether it is Hillary Clinton in 2016, whether it is Joe Biden in 2020, and now whether it is the Kamala Harris campaign in 2024. And you were starting to see some early inklings that the black vote was actually moving away from the Democrats in the early part of this race. You started to see some interesting polls that showed upward of 20% in some cases of black Americans saying they would vote for Donald Trump, which would be a historic shift. It'd be the largest share of the black vote won by any Republican since, I believe, Richard Nixon. It would be a huge share of the black vote. And now, since Kamala has jumped in the race, it seems that the polls have sort of reverted back to type, and now those numbers are back down in the 8, 9, 10% range. Why is it that the Democratic Party, number one, is so reliant on the black vote? And number two, why do black Americans keep voting in such outsized number for the Democratic Party? I mean, I'm used to this question being asked about Jews, and my usual answer is, well, because most Jews are not religious, right? Judaism is a religion. It's not just an ethnicity. And so you're talking, when it comes to Jews, about a very largely secular atheistic population that has high income and lives in blue areas. You just described kind of a typical Democratic voter. When it comes to black voters, however, this has been sort of a puzzle for a lot of Republican politicos. Why is it that the black vote goes so heavy for Democrats these days, despite the failure of Democrats in every major American city in the country?
It's cognitive dissonance and Stockholm syndrome. You have to take it all the way back to slavery and to the Jim Crow era. I was born on a cotton plantation in Haywood County, Tennessee. My father was a sharecropper, so I've lived a real black life. He brought us out of poverty in the 1970s by working in the insurance industry. And we started a gospel singing group, and we went around into black churches and whatnot, singing to black churches all over the South. I went to college at the University of Memphis, and then after college, I started working in a prison. And in that prison, I got a really, really serious education. It was in the 90s when the Clinton-Biden crime bill was locking up black men all over America. And I started asking the black intelligentsia, I said, man, why are all these young black men being locked up? And of course, I got the same old refrain. Rich, white, evil Republicans hate black people, and they just want to see them locked up. Well, I was naive. And I said, okay, really? So I quit my job. I started a nonprofit, went into the black community. And when I got into the ghettos, I saw something very, very interesting. I saw no evil, rich, white Republicans anywhere. You see a unicorn or a leprechaun before you saw one. But what I did see were a lot of black Democrats making a lot of money off of the chaos. And I wrote my first book about these black Democrats, and I called them the Iron Triangle. They were most black preachers, most black politicians, and most black civil rights workers. Their job was to be conduits between rich white liberals and the poor black community, and their job was to make sure that these black people voted for the Democratic Party by hook or by crook. It was a play on the old plantation system, where the house Negroes were in charge of the field hands, and they were conduits between the master in the big house and the field hands in the field. So after the Civil War, of course, we had this little period called Reconstruction. For a little while, black people voted for the Republican Party. But by the election of 1876, the Tilden Hayes election, the whole South went Democrat. Everything went red. They had the Mississippi and the South Carolina plan that talked about intimidating black people, paying black people, killing black people, and buying the black vote. And the black slaves who had previously voted Republican somehow or another reverted back to the Democratic Party in the election of 1876. They made the compromise, as you know. The Republican Hayes took the South when South Carolina decided they would give him their electoral college votes if he pulled the Union troops out of the South. And after that, the Democratic Party went gangbusters on the black community. Beatings, killings, you name it, they did it. To become a Republican was a pejorative in the black community. You would get killed for it. If your father or your mother even heard that you were a Republican, they would beat the hell out of you themselves. So it got to a point where Stockholm syndrome and cognitive dissonance took place in the black community. It became an explanation, not a condemnation. It's just how it was. And after that time, they put their black placekeepers in charge, the black preacher, the black politician, and the black civil rights workers, and told them your job is to keep the black people exactly where they're supposed to be. Lie to them, bribe them, use social pressure, do whatever you need to do. And it's been that way ever since. So when my grandfather, Walter Clark, got the right to vote in 1960, even though Richard Nixon and Eisenhower had made it possible through the 1957 Civil Rights Act and the 1960 Civil Rights Act, when he voted, his first vote was for the Democratic Party, even though the Democratic Party and the Ku Klux Klan had put him off the cotton plantation that he was living on. When he registered to vote, he still voted for them. Stockholm syndrome is so powerful. You remember Patty Hearst. You take on the characteristics of your oppressor. And the Democratic Party was such a brutal master. And black people were so isolated that even when they got the right to vote, they voted for their master. The civil rights movement showed it. We weren't fighting to separate from white Democrats and the Ku Klux Klan. Martin Luther King and his boys was fighting to integrate with them. We were the first race of people in the history of the world to fight to integrate with our former masters. Even the Jewish people, after the Holocaust, said, we're getting the hell out of Germany. We don't want to integrate with these Nazis. It would have been the equivalent of, after the Holocaust, the Jewish people in Germany said, well, now we want to integrate with the Nazis and let them educate our children. It was insanity. And now we see what's going on. Black people are so beaten down. They're so controlled. They have been so humiliated and so broken that they still identify with their former oppressors and their former masters. And we have to work to change that.
So how do you change that? I mean, I want to go through each part of the iron triangle that you just talked about. So you talked about civil rights workers, and you talked about black politicians, and you talked about black churches. So, each one of these has its own issues, obviously, and we don't want to treat all of these things as a monolith. There are different types of black churches, obviously. But let's go through each one of those pieces and tell me about why you think they've been doing what they've been doing. Where the interests lie?
Well, the black preacher, the interest lies in money. The Christianity of the South, before the Civil War, antebellum South, was an apostate Christianity. It's a Christianity based on racism, based on hypocrisy. It's a Christianity that said that Jesus Christ believed that black people should be slaves, believed that you could a woman and sell your offspring on an auction block. There was nothing wrong with it. That you could oppress people, that you could commit murder. It was a lie. This Christianity was passed on to the black slave, and he kept it. And one of the things that the black slave believed, I remember as a boy growing up in the South, and I hear my black preacher preach to us about the curse of Ham, that we were black because we were cursed, and that we were supposed to be slaves under the tutelage of the white man. And this was preached, and the Southern black churches were subjected to it. And the black preacher, in many respects, was chosen by the white establishment, and he was put in place by them, and he was told, your job, and you will keep your money as long as you keep these black people under us. And that became the whole concept of the black clergy down South for generations. Then you have the black civil rights workers. As you know, the NAACP was started by 8 white people and 1 black person who was W.B. Du Bois, and he was a communist. Their job, they had a vested interest in keeping black people under control, especially for when they did vote for the Democratic Party and vote for all of these crazy liberal causes. And they expanded into the Big Six, the CORE, Urban League, all of these guys, and they were all controlled by the rich white liberals also. And then, of course, out of that came the black politician. And when he became a Democrat, he became a company man. His job was to make sure that he made black people vote for the Democratic Party. Because ever since slavery, the Democratic Party could only survive with the support of the black community, whether it be slavery, whether it was their labor, whether it was just the fact that you made white supremacy possible to make me feel good about myself. They needed black people to either exploit for exploitation or for entertainment. And they still use us for that. We are a science project to them. They know us better than we know ourselves. They manipulate us better than, and we don't even know that we're being manipulated. So the Iron Triangle, my first book, blew the lid off of this. And the way we change it, one of the reasons I love school choice so much is that it gives you an opportunity to pull these children out of these government schools who also expand this ideology in the black community. Government control, liberalism, statism. If we can get them back to the community concepts of free markets, of their basic religion, of understanding competition, understanding unalienable rights, understanding that our rights come from God, not from government, that the whole concept of America is based upon what John Locke talked about, the unalienable rights that we have, rights that are irrevocable, non-transferable, and unsellable, that government cannot touch, that you do not go ask government for your unalienable rights. You defy government to come and take them. And this is why I have such a difficult time with Martin Luther King Jr. and the civil rights movement. They told Black America that you have to go to government for your rights. You have to go to government for protection. Everything he said was an anathema to what we are supposed to believe as free Americans. And until we teach our children that we have to jettison this silly, ignorant ideology, that I can only feel good about myself if I'm loved by white America, and I can only be protected or affirmed if I'm protected and affirmed by my government, we will never go any further. So one of the ways we do it is by what you're doing now. You giving somebody like me a platform to talk about these things. I have my podcast, the Vince Everett Ellison Show on YouTube, Rumble, and X, that people can log on to and they can watch that. But also the fact that if we can ever get that sizable chunk, about 15% of the black vote, away from the Democratic Party, we'll take them down forever. And I believe that black men are not going to go back to Ms. Harris. I think that as they see that she locked up more black men in California than Robert E. Lee and Jeff Davis combined, that she is an apostate, that she believes that that you should castrate little boys and call them little girls, give double mastectomies to little girls and call them little boys, that she believes in 9-month abortion, that she believes in taking away your right to keep and bear arms, and that she believes in allowing these people to come in and just infiltrate your neighborhood, to take away your space, to take away your schools, take away making rents go high, taking jobs away. As this is highlighted, you'll start seeing more and more black men turn away from her, and that's going to be her Achilles heel.
We'll get to more with Vince in just a moment. First, there are 8 million renters in America who are not only qualified to own a home, but could be saving 30% monthly on their rent simply by owning instead. Smart people know the path to wealth is through real estate. This is where Churchill Mortgage comes in. Churchill Mortgage's Home Buyer's Edge gives you, the buyer, the power. It allows you to compete with cash offers, provides lightning fast pre-approval, and Churchill Mortgage sweetens the deal with a $10,000 seller guarantee. My wife and I have bought and sold multiple homes over time. Each time we increased our equity. Stop funding your landlord's retirement. Do what I do. Go to churchillmortgage.com/Shapiro. You'll answer a few simple questions so they can connect you with a home loan specialist in your neighborhood. They'll help you build a plan, whether it takes 30 days or 6 months, to get you on the path to financial freedom through home ownership. If you're already in a home, but you got in at like a 7% interest rate or higher, you need to talk to Churchill Mortgage today. The Fed dropped the rates. You could be saving hundreds of bucks every single month with a simple refi, unless you just like paying more money to the banks or something. Averaging 5 stars and over 100,000 reviews, go to churchillmortgage.com/Shapiro. Connect with a home loan specialist you can trust. This is a paid advertisement. Home buyer edge and seller guarantee are available for qualifying borrowers and select loan types only, and not available in all states or locations. NMLS ID 591, MLSConsumerAccess.org, Equal Housing Lender, 1749 Mallory Lane, Brentwood, Tennessee, 37027. One of the things that you mentioned there that's really fascinating, and it's true statistically, is you are seeing a divergence between how black women vote and how black men vote. And that's mirrored across the political spectrum, actually. You are seeing a major divergence now between how women, not married women tend to vote like married men, which tends to be Republican, but single women and single men are voting very differently. And that is particularly true in the black community, where black women are voting in extraordinary numbers for Democrats, and black men are voting a little bit less so for Democrats. Why do you think that gender gap is now emerging?
Yeah, you have a lot of black men who are alpha males. And, you've seen the culture. They walk around, they swaggering and they talking trash. They talk about how many jokers they done shot and how many women they got. But there's an alpha maleness in these men, where in the black community, the worst thing you could call somebody is effeminate or gay. And they have found through social media, through shows like yours and shows like mine, that the Democratic Party supports all of this. They see that the Democratic Party is about destroying the family, that they have set up a system that is basically trying to castrate men. They see that they are using the public educational system to sexualize their children. They now understand about Drag Queen Story Hour, that they have set up a public educational system that sets their sons in front of men and shake their asses in their sons' faces. They see that the Democratic Party set up a system called Obamacare, where if your son wants to be transitioned, they'll pay for it. You see Tim Walz up in the state of Minnesota. That's made his state a sanctuary state. That if your child wants a sex change operation, that if they can get up to Minnesota, he'll give them protection and he'll pay for it. They're seeing that the Democratic Party wants to take away your right to pray to your God, to be hooked up to your religion. And we know that John Adams said that this Constitution is reserved for religious and immoral people. It's wholly inadequate for any other. They see that the Democratic Party is an evil institution. It's been the evilest institution in the history of the world. for the longest period of time. 200 years of murder. The party of slavery from 1800 to 1860. The party of the Confederacy from 1800 to 1865. The party of Jim Crow from 1865 to 1965. Now the party of transgenderism, abortion to the ninth month, open borders, disarmed American citizens, atheism, a cabal of liars, psychopaths, and anti-Christian bigots. And the message has gotten out. They can't hide it any longer. They're walking around with men with skirts and dresses on, men that talk about, it's great to transition and to castrate yourself. They're hearing it, and they're seeing it, and they're responding to it. And the more they hear it, the more black men will leave that party.
So you've obviously been a very vocal supporter of President Trump. You've called him the first black president, actually, not Barack Obama. So maybe you can explain that. Where are you coming from when you say something like that? Obviously meant to provoke, but what do you mean by that?
Well, President Trump, for the last 200 years, the Democratic Party, not the Republican Party, not the Labor Party, not the Know-Nothings or the Whigs, the Democratic Party has been the party that has locked up black men, put charges on them, hung them from trees, locked them up for just trumped up reasons. We saw the civil rights movement, how it was necessitated because of what the Democratic Party was doing to black men down south. We've seen the pictures of the lynchings. We've heard the stories of people planting evidence and locking these men up for no reason whatsoever. We saw the movie Hurricane with Denzel Washington, and there are just numerous stories of how black men have been set up by the Democratic Party to spend years and years in prison on charges that were trumped up and they were lies. Donald Trump has experienced that. He is the first American president to experience such a thing, to experience this type of persecution. He understands now how it feels to be prosecuted by the Democratic Party. Also, black men have dealt with violence on a tremendous level, state violence, shootings, murders, beatings, incarcerations. Donald Trump was shot in front of the world. Everybody saw it. They tried to kill him. So when you come down to the black experience, within the last 4 or 5 years, Donald Trump has experienced it on a level that no other president has ever experienced it. And as you and I know, being black or being ethnic has nothing to do with the color of one's skin. It has to do with your life experiences. It has to do with the things you believe. It has to do with your mores and your values. And Donald Trump seems to me to be more black than Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, or any other president that has ever stepped in the Oval Office.
The Obamas made their appearance. This is on night 2 of the Democratic National Convention. And Michelle Obama spoke, and her speech I thought was truly egregious. I thought it was actually the most egregious speech at the convention. It was significantly worse than Barack Obama. Barack Obama is a grifter and he's a con man, but he's really good at it. Michelle Obama is a very negative influence, shall we say, in American politics. I mean, some of the stuff that she's saying is deeply, deeply radical. So when she suggests that black people in America are inherently victimized and the only solution for that is effectively the Democratic Party, when she acts as though she is a victim of America after having gone to Princeton University, or that earning money in America is somehow inherently bad. She said that her parents told her that nobody should ever have more than what they need. Well, she owns 3 houses, including a $12 million home in Martha's Vineyard. You know, what did you make of that particular narrative? Because the hypocrisy is so glaring, but it seems to be ignored by a huge percentage of America, and particularly in the black community.
These people are elitists. They believe that they can do it and you can't. They are an affront to God as far as I'm concerned, because this is a question that they can never answer for me. As a Christian, Christians believe in the power and absolute power of Jesus Christ. They believe it. And as I asked them, I said, how can you be a victim and an heir of Jesus Christ? Explain that to me. How can you say, and that's why I tell people I cannot be a victim. They say, why? Because I'm an heir of Jesus Christ and I'm a child of God. I cannot be a victim. I cannot be oppressed for that same reason. You know, they say that people have white privilege. I said, well, yeah, it is a privilege to be white, but it's also a privilege to be black. It's a privilege to be an American. It's a privilege to be Jewish. It's a privilege to be Hispanic. So yeah, there is white privilege, but also it's a privilege to be black. But I also was born, they talk about, well, white people were born with privilege. Well, I was also born with privilege. I was born with two great parents. I was born a Christian. I was born with a lot of love, and I was born in the greatest country in the world, the United States of America. Hell, I won the lottery, man. So it's always where you look, but when you look at people who are elitists, when you look at people thinking they're better than you, they're going to always look at you and say you are a victim. They're going to always look at you, and by that they are saying, I am better than you. You can't save yourself. I can save you. They have put themselves in a position of God. I am the God that will ask you when you start coming down on yourself, are you a Christian? Are you a Jew? Are you a Muslim? And when they say yes, I said, well, what does your religion say? And then when they explained to me, I said, well, that's what you do. Why are you complaining to me? You don't believe in your God. You don't believe in what you've been taught. Get back to your belief system. And wherever you are in your life, God will give you peace. That's what he gives you. Wherever you are, whatever situation. You know, we read our Bible. Paul and Silas were in jail. And what were they doing? They were singing. You go through our history and you'll find that what God promises us is whatever situation, whether we're rich, whether we're poor, whether we're middle class, what does he give us? Peace, happiness. We're supposed to love one another. It's not about you loving me. It's about me loving you. They tell us that we're supposed to walk around and, ask racist white people to not judge us by the color of our skin. And I'm saying, what's wrong with the color of my skin? Nothing. Then let them judge me by it. Go ahead. Vince Ellison is black, and what? Judge me by it. Underestimate me at your peril. My job is to love you. My Bible tells me that I'm not to be concerned at all about how you view me. I'm supposed to be concerned about how I view you. But that doesn't give you the right to put your hands on me or make me your pinata. My job is to love you. My job is, if you need a good lawyer, I help you find one. If you need a good job, I'll help you get one. If you need a good education, I'll help you afford one, or I'll give it to you myself. If you need a good preacher, I'll help you find one. Short of that, I will not live in condemnation for you. And if you come and try to hurt me or mine, I got two things that'll get you off of me. That is Jesus and my 38. You better not try me.
We'll get to more of Vince in a moment. First, what's really keeping America up at night? It's not just the radical left's latest attempts to destroy our values. It's also uncomfortable bedding. That's why I've decked out my entire bed with Boll and Branch. Now, I'm not usually one for changing with the seasons. My principles are consistent year-round. When it comes to bedding, that's a different story. Starting with the Boll and Branch Signature Collection, their 100% organic cotton sheets are like the Constitution for your bed. Foundational, timeless, and getting better with age. They start off buttery soft, and somehow they get even softer with every wash. Plus, you can easily add their blankets, duvets, and quilts without making your bed feel heavy or hot. Trust me, a fall refresh with Boll and Branch will have your mind changed for good. Best of all, Boll and Branch gives you a 30-night worry-free guarantee with free shipping and returns on all U.S. orders of $100 or more. Let me tell you, when you're fighting the culture war day in and day out, good sleep is, in fact, crucial. Start getting your best sleep this fall with Boll and Branch. Enjoy 20% off plus free shipping on your first set of sheets at bollandbranch.com/Ben. That's Boll and Branch, BOLLAND, branch.com/Ben for 20% off and free shipping. Exclusions apply. See site for details. So you mentioned earlier your upbringing, the fact that your father was a sharecropper, and your family is wildly successful. Obviously, you have a brother who is he's the CEO of Lowe's. He was the former CEO of JCPenney. You're very successful in your own right. Maybe you can tell more about sort of your family progression, how you get there. Because I think that one of the lies the Democratic Party tells is exactly what you're talking about. They say to everyone, not just black men, but particularly black men, that you can't succeed in America, that the systemic obstacles are just too great. This is something, again, that Michelle Obama suggested at the convention. She said that she doesn't believe in the affirmative action of inherited wealth, but she does believe in other forms of affirmative action, obviously. Now, there is no quote-unquote affirmative action to inherited wealth, only in the sense that, you're better off than if you hadn't inherited wealth. But I know plenty of people who inherited wealth and blew it. I know many, many more people who did not inherit wealth and now are extraordinarily wealthy. The reality is that, as you say, we've all been born into the most privileged time in human history, in the greatest country in the history of the world. And if you happen to be born into a good family, that is the ultimate privilege. No one ever talks about that because that's a privilege you yourself can create in your everyday life. But I think that your family story is really interesting and a really good sort of indicator for folks who believe that they can't make it, that, actually with the right principles, you can.
You can. Ben, we were brought up in the Jim Crow South in Haywood County, Tennessee. In the Delta. Haywood County is one of the poorest places in America. We got a public school education, and we weren't these brainiacs in school that graduated summa cum laude in our classes. We got through. The one thing that our father taught us, it was that you control what happens to you. You cannot control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond to it. He taught us to never believe in racism. He said that you have good and bad people. Color had nothing to do with it. So you'll find good black people, you'll find good white people, you'll find bad black people, find bad white people. What you do is you make sure that you good people around you and keep good people around you. But he also taught us, and it was strange that we did not grow up with an inferiority complex because of him and my mother. My father and my mother were just two very attractive people. They were very good looking people. And they carried themselves in this regal way where they were always respected. It was something that happened last year that really just blew my mind. I was reading a piece of Standpoint magazine about Martin Luther King Jr., written by David Garrow. And at the end of that piece, he talked about how the FBI, how thorough they were in their investigations. And he talked about how they took down the Klan. And he said that the Tennessee Klan was the most violent Klan in the nation. And then he said that the Grand Wizard of the Tennessee Klan, his name was Doyle Ellington, lived in Brownsville, Tennessee, where I was living, where I was born. He said Doyle Ellington is still alive today, and he had a Facebook page. I'd never heard of this guy. So I called my father, and I said, Dad's 82 years old. I said, Dad, do you know Doyle Ellington? Dad said, yeah, I know him, Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. I said, Dad, why didn't you ever tell me about this guy? He said he was no consequence. I said, Dad, he's a Grand Wizard of the Klan. How was he no consequence? He said, well, I talked to Doyle about 60 years ago. And I told him, if you ever touch me or mine, I'll go more his range out. Never had no problems out of Doyle since. Ben, he never even told me the guy existed. This is how no consequence the Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan was, the most violent Klan faction in America was to my father. That's how he taught me. You stand tall. You work, you earn the respect of the men around you. And if you don't get their respect, you get their fear. But you don't walk around here with your back bent, begging to be accepted. Muhammad Ali says a sick mind that wants to be somewhere where he's not wanted. If they don't want you there, you don't go there. If they're mean to you, you tell them, that's cool, man. You put your hands on me. I got something that's going to slice your throat, though. And they will respect you. And I've just naturally led my life like that my whole life. Me and my brother, my sisters, my brother, all of us. And we've been quite successful in America because there's a human element involved in that. It's a human element that you will always respect men and women that carry themselves in a regal and respectful way. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is talking about, he was dreaming about a day that you'll be judged by not by the color of your skin, but by the content of your character. You will be judged by the content of your character. It is inescapable. He's given black people a fallback position where when their character is defective, they can say, it was the color of my skin. No, it wasn't. It was because you came in here late. It's because you don't work. It's because you come in here looking nasty and filthy. You're disrespectful. You're a victim. You always talk about you being oppressed. You're a walking lawsuit. And I can't have you around me. So our father taught us, come in early. Stay late, be honest, do the job well, and good people will recognize that, and they will elevate you. And those are the people that you want around you, and it has never failed me.
Those lessons, I really think, can only be implemented by a father. And this, of course, is one of the critical problems in the black community. It's a problem across America, too, actually, now, is the radical rise of single mother homes. The fact that there are not enough men in the families. And the single motherhood rate in the black community is now upward of 70%. In the white community, it is upward of 40%. If you go back to 1960, which was supposedly, it was clearly a time of more racial oppression, the single motherhood rate in the black community was 20%. In the white community, it was 5%. So apparently the oppression went away. And the result of that was that fathers are no longer in the home. The only rationale for that really is that the government came in and said, as you say, that the solution is not to free people of the oppressive burdens that are keeping them down. the solution is for the government to be your father. And it turns out that the government is not capable of being your father. The government is a terrible father.
They knew that, and it's part of the communist Marxist construct to destroy the family. You all know about the Patrick Moynihan report, 1965, when Moynihan told Lyndon Johnson that we have to get the black man back at the head of the family because we're showing that because of welfare, black men are employed, but they're not getting married because women are getting on welfare and they don't need to get married. And if you read David Garrow's book, Bearing the Cross, he talked about this Moynihan report, and he talked about when Moynihan bought it to LBJ. And LBJ said, good idea, let's do it. But he said, you got to go to the civil rights community first and get them to sign off on it. McGeorge Bundy, who was on the Ford Foundation at the time, was sponsoring a retreat for Martin Luther King Jr. and a bunch of pastors and a bunch of civil rights workers. And he said, hey, Patrick, go with me to this retreat and you can show Dr. King and the rest of the people this great report that you've done and we can get them to sign off on it. McGeorge Bundy reports in this book, he said that if the wonder Moynihan got out of that room alive, they cussed him out, called him a racist, all kinds of, the feminists really went off on him. And they said that instead of using that money to put the black man back in charge of his family, they wanted to use the money to put the black woman in charge of the family. And they went to LBJ and lobbied for the man in house clause to be put in welfare. It was Martin Luther King Jr. that demanded this, that the man in house clause be put in welfare. And LBJ did it. And in one generation, the black community went from, like you said, having 80% of their children being born in two-parent families to 80% being born out of wedlock. Martin Luther King Jr. was the first recipient of the Margaret Sanger Award in 1966 for helping her set up abortion clinics in the black community. Yeah, he got the Margaret Sanger Award and had his wife go and do a great speech that he had wrote, accepting the award, and it's still on display right now. King was actually kicked out of the black church in 1961, out of the National Baptist Convention, because he tried to take over the convention in Kansas City to use the 10 million member National Baptist Convention for the civil rights movement. And they started a fight on the floor. A preacher died in the process. They had to send in the SWAT team, and the mayor of Kansas City had to come in to shut it all down. And at the end, Bishop Jackson won the vote and excommunicated King and his crew out of the black church. So King started his own religion. It was called the Progressive National Baptist Convention. That's the sect that Raphael Warnock belongs to. You know, Raphael Warnock, the senator from Georgia, the apostate minister there, yeah, they believe in abortion, LGBTQ, they're a bunch of man. But that was King's religion. He started his own church. And the one thing that really knocked me for a loop was when I found out this year from a lot of writings from Virgil Walker and John MacArthur, they even say that Martin Luther King Jr. was not a Christian. He said he was a Baptist minister, he was a Christian minister, but in his writings, that are at Stanford University, King says in his own writings he didn't believe in the deity of Christ, he didn't believe in the resurrection, he didn't believe in the virgin birth, and you can't believe in any of these and not be a Christian. So we've been sold a bill of goods that we've been following a Marxist who has set up a Marxist construct in the black community. And in 1956, Taylor Branch wrote in his book, Parting the Water, American the King Years. He said in 1956 that the Comintern sent a directive to their communists in the civil rights movement to turn the black community into a replica of the Soviet Union. And that's exactly where we are right now. One party rule, dictator worship, atheism, poverty, substance abuse. They've done exactly what they wanted to do. They've taken us and they've reversed the whole Civil War and put us right back on the Democrat Party plantation. And that's why what you're doing today with me and having given me this platform is so important, that many people don't know this. Many people haven't put all of the pieces together. And through my books, from the Iron Triangle, the 25 Lies, to Crime Inc., and now to the End of Tolerance, I've explained this. And in my great documentary, Will You Go to Hell for Me? I put it down. And nobody can refute my arguments. They're ironclad. Because look at the condition of black people at the bottom of every socioeconomic statistic in America. And they want to keep us right there because they know as long as we stay there, we're going to vote for them. And that's all they want.
We'll get to more of Vince in a moment. First, October 7th marked the one-year anniversary of the worst attack on Jews since the Holocaust. 1,200 Israelis were murdered. Over 250 were taken hostage. The war in Israel continues to rage on today. Earlier this month, Iran launched a massive barrage of nearly 200 ballistic missiles at the Holy Land. This isn't just another conflict in the Middle East. Israel and its people are facing attacks from enemies on all sides who seek its annihilation. But there's hope. The International Fellowship of Christians and Jews is on the ground right now, providing food, shelter, and safety to those in need during this crisis. Since the war started, thousands of reservists, everyday Israeli citizens, have left their families to serve their country. Soldiers who have been injured and their families need our support. Your gift of $45 today helps the fellowship provide food and other necessities to these families to help them survive. Here's what I need you to do right now. Go to benforthefellowship.org. That's benforthefellowship.org to make a gift today. In the face of these threats, the fellowship's ongoing work providing security to Israelis has never been more important. Remember, benforthefellowship.org. God bless and thank you once more. benforthefellowship.org to give generously in a time of need. Again, that's benforthefellowship.org. So let's talk about your brand new book, The End of Tolerance. So you talk about tolerance. Tolerance is obviously promoted by the Democratic Party as not just a virtue, but maybe the only virtue. Obviously, the Democratic Party is not tolerant of everybody. If you are a traditional Bible believer, they're not particularly tolerant. If you believe in free markets, they're not particularly tolerant. If you believe in traditional gender roles and that boys should remain boys as opposed to being girls, then they're not particularly tolerant. In The End of Tolerance, you talk about how tolerance itself, there's no moral content to it. It depends what you are tolerating. Right? It's one thing to tolerate good behavior, but to tolerate bad behavior is actually a sin.
You know, Archbishop Charles C. Chaplin said, and I'm going to read this, that evil preaches tolerance until it is dominant. Then it tries to silence the good. And that's their game. They preach tolerance. They want us to tolerate their evil, our evil. And then when they get power, they silence the good. And we see that now in real time. They're trying to silence us on Twitter. They're trying to silence us on YouTube. They're trying to silence us in the public square. I saw that great testimony you gave before Congress, where they had these advertisers that were telling people, telling folks, don't advertise to these companies if they don't meet our certain liberal standard. And you tore these guys down. Masterful, man. I got to give you, if I was with you right now, I'd give you a hard fist pump. Very good. But you brought attention to it. And I believe that sunlight is the greatest disinfectant. You have to let people understand this, because many people, they make tolerance a virtue. And when I started the book with a sermon from the great Reverend Billy Graham that says tolerance is a sin, I go through the book and I read how the Bible says tolerance is a sin. I show how us tolerating and how they've used our tolerance to say this is goodness, and how we've allowed LGBTQ to come into a point now where they sexualize our children, how we've allowed the drugs in our communities, how we've allowed family breakdown, how we've allowed pornography in our communities, and how it is just destroying us, and how now it's time for men to push back. I love the fact, man, that you talk a lot about masculinity, and that it's not toxic, that we need men to lead families. We need men to go back into the heads of our family and to lead our communities. But how you define what manhood is. I'm right with you on that. We need to discuss it, and we need to discuss it with men. And now there are a litany of women coming out to start talking about it also. And they are telling these young girls, you've been told a lie. This neoliberal feminism is destroying this nation. We can look right now at our birth rate. It's at 1.6. It's been that way now for going on almost 10 years. We are dying as a nation. And I don't know how people see Vladimir Putin, but Putin has a legitimate beef when he says that these satanic Western values are destroying America, and it's going to destroy my nation if we allow it to keep percolating over here. We got to push it back. And a lot of what's going on over there right now with the war and with the anger and all it is a fight between Eastern Europe and Western Europe, and these Western values and these Christian values that are in Eastern Europe. And there's a collision course now. And the sad thing is that America, the country that used to, we used to push these Christian values of democracy and virtue. And instead of the left saying, we need to stop this, y'all, and reevaluate what we're doing, they're saying full speed ahead. They have a depopulation movement that wants to see mankind commit suicide. And we have to bring people's attention to these crazy Man, they are crazy as hell. And we got to start calling them that. And we got to start giving them no quarter. I know you do it every single day. And I want to tell you, I appreciate what you're doing. You've taught me a lot. You've given me courage. And we have to just keep on hitting them, and hitting them until we break them in half.
You know, you can see it at the DNC. The DNC was literally providing abortions in the parking lot. Vasectomies and abortions at the parking lot. They had an 18-foot idol of an IUD, which is a very weird idol to choose, except if you actually believe that progeneration is actually a bad thing. And when you talk about America's foreign policy, the thing is that a muscular American foreign policy, in my view, has always been a good thing because it's promoting particular values. And those particular values are Christian orientation, Judeo-Christian orientation, things like private property, things like limited government that enhance the rights of human beings to religiously worship. Right? These were all things that were baked into the foundations of the country. When we were fighting fascism in Europe, we weren't fighting to implant a gay pride flag in Berlin. That was not what we were fighting for. And yet what you see now is mandates from the State Department that we're to fly a rainbow flag or a Pride Progress flag outside the Vatican. We won't do it, you know, in the Gaza Strip, obviously, because that might offend all of the Hamasniks that the Democratic Party is trying to cater to. But yeah, it's a very selective group of values that are now being pressed forward by this particular White House and by the administrations that have been Democratic. It also opens the door, I think, to, frankly, what is a bit of it's a correct critique, but I think it's a cynical play by people like Vladimir Putin. So when Vladimir Putin says, you know, you guys are trying to spread LGBT values in Russia, he's not wrong. That is a true thing that the United States has been doing all over the world, treating it as a matter of core American interest, whether same-sex marriage is allowed in Nigeria or something. Because of that, it also allows him to polarize the debate around a thing that really is not what the fight in Ukraine is about. The fight in Ukraine is really not about gay rights, it's about borders, and yet he's been able to use that in a nefarious way by saying a true thing and wrapping it, by taking a false thing and then wrapping it in a true thing.
You're exactly right. And they've afforded him the ability to do that. Because I was reading in my book, they had this guy from the Russian Orthodox Church. I can't come up with his name now, but it's in my book, where he said that one of the things that the EU asks for in order for you to become part of the EU, they say that you must have a gay pride parade in your nation's capital, and that if you don't do that, they will treat you like an alien. And he said that they had to have this thing done in Kiev, then they wanted it done in the Donbass region, and the people kind of rebelled against it, And this was their reason, like you said. This is the reason that he used, one of the reasons to do what he did. And we're affording them this because when you look at America and you see a whole month designed for guys walking around in leather booty shorts, shaking their asses in the street, talking about pride, when in Judeo-Christian values, the one thing that God hates is what, man? Pride. So I hate it. And then these guys use a whole month for pride. And as you and I know, with pride, there's no repentance. There's no reconciliation. Why? Because if you tell a prideful person, you've done wrong, then I've done nothing wrong. You need to repent. For what? I've done nothing wrong. That's the real problem. We all screw up. We all mess up. We all need grace. We all need forgiveness. But when you are filled with pride, it puts a barrier between you and reconciliation with the person that you've wronged. And this is the danger of the whole pride movement. It's one of your sons still in your car, spending all your money, then coming back on the weekend to the house, putting his feet up on the furniture, acting like nothing's happened. You're going to look at him and say, don't you have something to say? No, what? Boy, you stole my car. You spent most of my money, and you're not going to come up here and tell me you're sorry? I haven't done anything wrong. Tell you what you do. You get the hell out of my house until you come back and you humble yourself like David humbled himself to God. Admit to what you've done and repent for it. And then we can have reconciliation. But until that time, don't you show your face here. This is what the left is taking away from the young. They are giving them this prideful spirit. And with a prideful spirit, you cannot teach a prideful person. You must be a humble, apt pupil. You must go in and humble yourself to your teacher and say, teach me. You've seen athletes, they go up to a coach and, they like, oh, you can't teach that guy. But if he runs up to the coach and looks at him and says, yeah, coach, yes, yes. Now I have myself a student. You show up early, you leave late, you do your work hard, you ask questions that assist you in doing your job. Now I have myself an apt pupil. But these people are wrapped up in this false pride, and the left just feeds it and feeds it. The pronoun thing, right? The whole gay rights thing. My pronouns, my feelings, my truth, my. When is the last time you heard any of those lazy jokers thank America for what they've given them, for the house that they live in? People that own, any type of government assistance. You ever see them thank this country for being able to go to the doctor for free, a free house to live in, free food to eat? No. Free education. I want more. More. Never gratitude, never thank you. More. And until they start loving themselves, they can have as many Juneteenths and MLK days. They can take down as many American Confederate flags as they want. They can march as much as they want. They can sweat, they can fight, and they can riot. Until they start loving themselves and start taking responsibility for their own actions, they're going to remain at the bottom. And that's for everybody that believes that sick ideology.
When you talk about tolerance, the thing that Judeo-Christian values teach with regard to tolerance is that obviously you have to have grace for sinners, but you never have grace for the sin. There's this bizarre mindset in the United States and in the West generally, which is that not only do you have to have grace for people who sin, but the sinner gets to now set the new standard is unprecedented. I mean, you cannot have a system of rules where the people who violate the rules are not treated as people we should, again, have tolerance and grace for, but are the people who get to set the new standard themselves. And the more you violate the standard, the better off you are, the more intersectional you are, the more you have been victimized by society. And that really goes to a sense of self-definition that I think so much of the West has bought into. If you're a religious person, if you're a traditional person in any sense, the way that you believe that you are defined as a human being, you were born into a system that predates you, and you owe something to the people who eventually you are going to have to raise. Right? You owe something to the future, and you owe a lot to the past. And if you are in modern society, you're apparently born in the middle of nowhere. You get to set standards for yourself. And in fact, any other institution, any rules are an imposition on you as a human being. And so the most free you could be, the most authentic you could be, is by blowing up all the rules around you. And so the more violative you are, the more transgressive you are, the stronger and better you are. But that, of course, is not true because that's not how reality works. It turns out that the rules that were set by your ancestors and that you're supposed to pass on to your kids, those are rules for the road. It's as though you're handed a driver's manual by your parents about how to drive this car. And instead of doing that, you just toss it out the window. You have no idea how anything in the car works, but you now declare that anytime you hit a button and it doesn't do what you want it to do, the car has somehow failed. And then you just start taking a bat to the car, and soon you're left with nothing. You're left with a complete piece of trash, and you blame your parents for apparently having built a defective car.
You know what, Ben, you said that so well. And here's the thing. The gatekeepers know that. There's enough empirical evidence over the last 100 years to tell them that everything that they're doing is wrong. This is why I say they're evil. They see the numbers just like you and I see the numbers. These guys are doctors. They know that a baby is alive. They know that when you abort a child up to the 9th month, that child is alive. They know that when they voted against the Stay Alive bill, that a baby that survives an abortion and you lay them on the table and you just let them die. And then when Trump said they believe in abortion after the 9th month, no, we don't. No, we don't. You voted against the Stay Alive bill. Of course you do. Of course you do. They know this. A Democratic Party heaven is an American hell. John F. Kennedy stood in front of the Berlin Wall, 1963, I think it was. For all these people that think that communism is great, that it's so good, let them come to Berlin. Well, I tell you that if you think the Democratic Party is so great, it is so good, let them come to Detroit. Let them come to Chicago. Let them come to Memphis. Let them come to Seattle. Let them come to Portland, L.A. Yeah, let them come to Richmond. Let them come to anywhere that they rule. Milwaukee, Philadelphia. Mayhem, murder, destruction, terrible schools. They control every whorehouse, every crack corner, every failing school, every corrupt police force, every judge, every jury that's sending black men to prison. They know exactly what they're doing. This is not a mistake, just like the old slave plantation. They knew what they were doing. It was all about them. One question: am I maintaining power? Answer: yes. Don't change a thing. That's who they are.
Well, Vince, obviously, your passion is infectious. Everybody should go check out your brand new book, The End of Tolerance. Really appreciate the time, and thanks for fighting for what you're fighting for.
Ben, thank you so much, man. You're a true patriot. You're a true American. You're a good man. I love your show.
Hey, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Keep this ball rolling, man, because you're changing the world.
Thanks.
Thank you.
The Ben Shapiro Sunday Special is produced by Savannah Morris and Matt Kemp. Associate producers are Jake Pollock and John Crick. Editing is by Katie Vanderkoy. Audio is mixed by Mike Coromina. Camera and lighting is by Zach Ginta. Hair, makeup, and wardrobe by Fabiola Cristina. Title graphics are by Cynthia Angulo. Executive assistant, Kelly Carvalho. Executive in charge of production is David Wormus. Executive producer, Justin Siegel. Executive producer, Jeremy Boring. The Ben Shapiro Show Sunday Special is a Daily Wire production. Copyright Daily Wire 2024.